Hey everybody, Dr. Liz here. I'm so excited to read your final papers, and I just wanted to point out a few things to you to make sure that your final project, the project itself, and let's be honest, I know a lot of us are really just worried about the grade, that grade is as high as you want it to be as well. And there are some very big differences between the way that the final paper is graded relative to the milestone grades that you've turned in so far. So I really want to make sure that I cover this for you guys as you're working for the week. And I'm going to actually go to the milestone 1 rubric and use that to illustrate the difference. And so recall that milestone 1 was the introduction section of your paper that you first turned in. And I'm going to scroll down to the rubric. And in your previous submissions, all 3 milestones, we have peer feedback that are included as almost half of your grade. So the paper, while it's certainly important, if you kind of had a hard time with the paper, but you did a good job on your peer feedback replies, your overall grade was still going to be a good one because half your grade almost was that peer feedback. Well, on the final paper submission, we don't have peer feedback this time. So that means your entire grade is actually based on the paper itself. There's also another key difference, and that was the categories that I had open to me the first times you turned in your stuff with milestones. So notice that while there is an exemplary category on the rubric, it's blacked out, which means that you got full points even if your section of your paper was just proficient. A lot of you guys turned something in that was exemplary. And how do you know it's exemplary? If I didn't put a comment or a question that addresses that section, then you know, like typically I try to be like, yes, this was awesome. I try to be really positive. But to make it easier for you, I try to kind of limit the comments that I put on these papers to make it easy for you to see what you need to fix. That's typically what we actually do in research circles is you only make comments if you want to actually like fix, if you're reviewing it and think the person needs to fix something. So if you have, for example, on your research question section, if you don't have any comments or questions from me next to that section, you know it's exemplary, even if I didn't give you exemplary the first time around because it wasn't an option, right? The highest we could get was proficient. Looking at the final paper rubric, though, you'll see that now for most categories, most sections of your paper, now exemplary is an option. So what does that mean? Well, in terms of like grade-wise. Well, what that means is that on your milestone 1, let's say you got proficient on the research question section, and I made a comment that said, hey, please see page 3, add this detail or something like that. On your milestone 1, you got your full points. However, if you don't go back and make that change that I asked you for, you'll still get, perhaps that same proficient grade that you got before. However, that's not going to get you 100% grade-wise. In fact, you can see now that's an 85% instead because exemplary was not an option previously. In another example, let's say you missed a few details in your population section. So you got a needs improvement. I said something like, please add gender information or, the racial makeup of the sample or something like that. It didn't really hurt your milestone 1 grade because the highest you could get was proficient and needs improvement was just a little step down from proficient. But now in the final project, if you get needs improvement in that population section, or actually that's a bad example because I forgot for population, you either put it all there or you didn't, so it doesn't have an exemplary. Let's go to research question. So let's say you got a needs improvement last time on your research question section. It only cost you a couple points before, but now because exemplary is also a possibility, that means that the percentage is going to be a lot lower relative to your points. I know this can be very confusing, for sure. So I hope I'm not making this too overly complicated. The simple idea behind what I'm trying to say is, let's say you got an A on your milestone before. That's very possible that you did get an A on that milestone because of the peer feedback and because you might have only lost a couple of points for a few sections. But now on the final paper, if you don't address the comments that I asked you to address, you very likely, even if you've been getting A's the entire, trip through, you could end up with a paper that's a B or even a C because the grading scale is so different. So the big idea, I just want to make sure that you get, as long as you address effectively my comments and my questions, that is going to be an exemplary paper. So if you look at a comment and you're just not quite sure what I'm asking for, if it's not clear to you, if you need help, please reach out because I want you to be as successful as you do. And unfortunately, what happens, this hasn't actually happened too much recently because I've tried to put this warning out here, but it does happen that people say, well, I got A's the entire time. How in the world did I just end up getting a C on this paper? And it's because, again, the grading is very different. So if you have any questions whatsoever about any piece of feedback, I am here perfectly willing to help.